You're going to sit right. Oh, man. Jesus.
Sonya, looking for me.
Okay. I'm going to start hyperventilating.
I got 42.
Yeah, we sold out.
Hey, well, how you doing, man? Alan, we met. That's right. Yeah, I'm co-hosting with John today. I got a minute and 20 seconds. I came We roll. Go, John. Go, John. You're live. Let's go.
We're live? Good morning. We are live broadcasting. I want to welcome you. I'm John Ahmann. I'm President and CEO of the Westside Future Fund, and we're very excited in Black History Month to be broadcasting live from the Russell Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. So welcome. I'm here with my co-host, Derek Jordan.
Yeah, I'm Derek Jordan. I'm a Westside resident. I'm also a consultant here at Westside Future Fund. Thank you all for coming out in this 18-degree weather this morning. Like, you started off your day in the best way possible.
We also want to note that we are the live broadcast, so you'll see the cameras around, so we're up live on our social media, Facebook and YouTube. And so when the show's over, immediately the broadcast is available. And I also always like to start our Transform Westside Summits by welcoming, especially, and I had an opportunity to say hello to many people that are frequent attenders of our summit. But if you've never been to a Transform Westside Summit, would you raise your hand? If you're a first-time Transform Westside Summit attender. All right, great. We have an initiation fee of $100. We're very happy that you came this morning. No. But it's a key purpose of this Transform Westside Summit is to build community, build connections on behalf of Transforming our Westside. And to share a little bit about how we do that, I want to overview our program. We're going to have a devotion in just a moment from the Reverend Sean Smith, the pastor with New Horizon Baptist Church, and I'll say more about that. After the devotion, a really important part about building that community is by getting to know each other. So we take the time in every Transform Westside Summit to do self-introductions, and so Derek will lead that. And then we are very excited to have Terri Lee, longtime leader of housing in Atlanta, now leading Atlanta Housing on our 1-year anniversary. And so we'll have a discussion with her. I'll have some questions and conversation, and then open up to the audience, and then we'll be done by 9 o'clock. And so you know a little bit about Terri Lee.
I know a little. She's probably nervous to see me up here, right? Because, I know some things about Terri that good and bad. But I actually moved to Atlanta 20 years ago, and I was an intern. I was moving from Mississippi. And to finish my college degree, I had to work for a public agency. So I got lucky and fell into the Office of Housing in the city of Atlanta 20 years ago. And we had transition there. I think Shirley, they was letting some people go. And in comes Terri Lee as the new housing director. And I'm just sitting in there, right? They got me date stamping papers. Listen, date stamping papers. Do y'all remember this manually? Little thing, you adjust the date stamping it. And she comes to the back and she's like, what they got you doing in here? Date stamping paper. She says, you got a master's? I said, yeah, I'm working on it. I ain't quite got it, but I'm working on it. She said, we're going to change that. So over the course of 12, 13 years, I spent every day Terri Lee. And I'm going to tell you the biggest lesson I learned from Terri. Terri knows how to pray. If you don't know this about her, she knows how to pray. And we would be at working late. It might be 1, 2, 3 in the morning, City Hall, bottom, cold like this day. And she would come and she would tell me, Derek, come to my office. I go in the office. I used to be kind of nervous too when I go in the office because I don't know what she's about to give to you. She's like, I need to pray for you. And when she prays, she always starts out with Father God. It's like, Father God, bow your head, Derek. Father God, please place a protective hedge around this boy so I don't kill him tonight. Because I had done something throughout the day or something out the week. But my best memory is us being together 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And she's the kind of worker, if she was leaving out the office and she saw you in the office still working, she would drop her bags and sit down there with you. And I remember she told me she was walking past the office, she got that walk, she's getting out of there. And she was like, Derek, you okay? And I'm like, no, Terri, I'm not. She dropped the bags. She said, what's going on? She sat down. I said, I'm hungry. She said, what you want? I said, just give me some rice. Give me some rice. And we so happen to be in the Rice Center Innovation today. And I thought it was only fitting that I bring that up full circle for you. And she has just been a blessing to my life. So it's just going to be a great conversation today with Terri, right?
Yeah, no, thank you. And and as part of that conversation, we're really honored to be in the Russell Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. I wanted to, just reflect for a moment, given it is Black History Month, and one, just at a personal level for me, how inspirational it is to live on the West Side, and so many amazing leaders, Black leaders, that have changed the face of our city and our country and really our world, came from Atlanta's West Side. And certainly among those, Herman J. Russell, and I'm always amazed at events about how many people he personally touched and inspired. And so just to honor that legacy for a moment, if you kind of knew Mr. Russell or personally touched, and I first want to recognize, Sylvia Russell. His wife is here. Thank you, Sylvia, part of the board of the Russell Center. And our board chair with the Westside Future Fund, T. Dallas Smith. Thank you for being here this morning. But if you were touched by Herman Russell, just raise your hand for a moment so we can just see the continued live legacy. And of course, we're all touched this morning by being in this building this morning. He built opportunities, communities, and a lasting legacy. And we also want to appreciate his family that continue to uphold that legacy. And one of the things that I, just to give a personal reflection on it, in this very room, his family commissioned a documentary about him. I think it was featured in this room. And, learning more about how the challenge he overcame in his life, not just of his skin color and the discrimination and beat down really he faced in trying to overcome that, but also a stutter. And his amazing resilience to overcome in the face of those challenges. And, over the course of his career and becoming successful, he teamed up a lot with Holder Construction. And actually one of the folks in that channel, white family, Tommy Holder, was on our board for a bit, but his father, worked for Ahmann Russell. And I remember in that documentary, him remarking that, he was successful, but he had all the gifts of opportunity to be successful, right? And Ahmann Russell did not and was still successful. And what is amazing to me about that legacy is not only that success, but his kindness and care, because I can imagine, always think through how easy it would be to get a bitter heart in those kind of circumstances. But that's not what happened, and we have a better city and a better country for four vets. So let's just maybe take a moment to recognize and appreciate that legacy, and that we're here this morning enjoying that legacy and that kind heart as well. So and thank you to Russell Center for hosting us in the morning.
Well, John always does he has a great way of storytelling. We also have some great stories at Westside Future Fund. The way to get to those stories is Instagram, Facebook. Cold mornings, 18, go to YouTube. 18 degrees outside, go to YouTube. Tune in. Best way to get in contact with us. We have a great staff here. They're not all in the room, but I tell you, there's a wonderful staff of people who help us, who help this community kind of move forward in the work that we do. So I just want to say a special shout out to you all. Definitely a blessing for us. We're going to go to the devotion.
Yeah, thank you. And we're now in a shift to our devotion part. And before I introduce our devotion speaker formally, we always, since the beginning of our Transform Westside Summits, we've now been doing them about 10 years, want to ground them in a devotional statement, taking inspiration and lessons from the story of Nehemiah in the Old Testament, where he went back, called by God to rebuild Jerusalem, but not just the story of building, the bricks that helped make the community safe, but the values that grounded that community. But we always want to read a devotion statement, to set the stage for it. And I'm going to read it out loud, and it's also, I think, printed up behind me. But it's become our tradition to begin our meetings with a positive, inspirational message from a member of our community, recognizing that many in our community are driven by their spiritual faith to participate in the Westside revitalization effort. The time at the beginning of our meetings is an opportunity to share various and spiritual reflections. While the speakers may articulate their personal faith, it's meant to be inclusive, inspiring, and meaningful, with the story of Nehemiah as our guide. So we are honored this morning to have the Reverend Sean B. Smith lead us. He's been the pastor of New Horizon Baptist Church since 2001 and serves as a senior advisor for faith affairs to Mayor Dickens. A graduate of Georgia State University and Mercer's McAfee School of Theology, he has dedicated his life to faith, service, and community empowerment. Beyond the pulpit, he has worked with organizations like the NAACP, MLK Merchants Association, and United Way, and founded Three Essentials, a not-for-profit focused on youth and workforce development. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Sean B. Smith as he leads us this morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. That felt like at home. So then I'm not going to feel as bad. I thought Terri Lee loved me, and she asked me if I would come and do this, and I said, "So you want a Black Baptist preacher to say something in 5 minutes, and it take us 3 minutes just to breathe? You understand? Got to get the airflow right. You understand what I'm saying?" And then, because God's got a sense of humor, I ran out the house and left my eyes. So I'm going to read this, praise the Lord, with all the words swimming around, amen. So you pray for me mightily this morning. But good morning, and thank you, John. and thank you, Westside Future Fund. And I'm very much aware and familiar with all of the great work that you're doing on the West Side. I'm gonna do it a little bit like we do at church. I'm gonna read this because I need for you to get it before I try to talk around it, if you don't mind. In Nehemiah chapter 6, it says, "Now when it was reported to Sanballat and Tobiah and to Geshem the Arab and to the rest of our enemies that I had built the wall and that there was no gap left in it, though up to that time I had not set up the doors and the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me saying, 'Come, let us meet together in one of the villages in the plain of Ono.' But they intended to do me harm. So I sent messengers to them saying, 'I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it to come down to you?'" Community redevelopment, any talk of transformation of any sort, personal, organizational, and I dare say most especially community, brings with it hope and excitement for some, but for others it could breed fear and trepidation. What does the change look like? What will it mean for me and those who look like me? How much will it affect me and my self-interest? Who will be coming as a result of this transformation? Nehemiah serves as a tremendous source of inspiration for taking on the seemingly impossible and making it work. While most references I've heard marvel at his people and project management skills to get the job done, however, for me, it is how he managed the obstacles. First, he acknowledged that everyone didn't want to see him succeed. He took seriously the threats to the project. He casted a vision of confidence and took concrete steps to mitigate the opposition's efforts to derail the project. For he knew well if they got the wall rebuilt, the rehabilitation of the city would quickly follow. So he understood he could not allow the distractions to get to him. And that's where I'm at. Distractions are dream killers. Distractions create confusion, lies, bitterness, and most of all, distrust, professionally and personally. As Henry Newman once wrote, distractions mean we are being pulled into the past or into the future. Distractions mean we are not fully present yet. And we are a little bit in the past, a little bit in the future, and all over the place, actually. But what I receive from Nehemiah's narrative is, when faced with the impossible and the implausible, let love be your guide. He had heard of the condition of the people back in Jerusalem, and it caused them great consternation and despair. Love then motivated action, demonstrated in his taking the initiative to do something about the problem. He didn't get the proverbial cart before the horse. He set his foundation firm first and then let love, not simply love of getting the deal or even the love of completing the project to cement his legacy, but his love for the people to guide his steps. Much like the featured guest this morning. If you spend any amount of time with Terri Lee, her passion for this work, her love for the people of the city just gushes out. You'll hear more about her accomplishments in these 12 short months she's been at the reins at the Atlanta Housing Authority, but her deep-seated love for humanity didn't just appear a year ago. It is fundamentally who she is, and it shows. So what does this mean for us? I promise I'm not doing the preacher lie. I'm wrapping up right here. Nehemiah's response to those who would conspire to defeat his project was simply, "I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down." He said no to the time stealers, no to the dream destroyers. "I don't have time to entertain you. I'm doing a great work." In the words of that Negro spiritual, "I keep so busy working for the kingdom, I ain't got time to die." Y'all don't know that. Love is a powerful disruptor of distraction. Just like Nehemiah, times such as these demand a love that produces a resolute determination towards progress because the obstacles are numerous and the naysayers are many. The mayor, Andre Dickens, often loves to say, love ought to look like something. That he attributes to me. Because yes, I did say it, and I said it a whole lot of times, and I'm so excited I get to say it in public for the first time myself. But in truth, love ought to look like something. We all have the capacity to contribute to the group project, the mayor's words. That is called Atlanta. There's room for you in this group project. Just like it did when Nehemiah rebuilt the wall, it was a collaboration of government and citizen participation to rebuild what was once destroyed and in disrepair. And this is what is happening on the west side of Atlanta today. The City of Atlanta, the Atlanta Housing Authority, the Westside Future Fund, the Blank Foundation, the Chick-fil-A Foundation, and many others have joined hands to commit resources to the revitalization of this city. It is a group project, and it will take each of us doing the part of the wall that is before us. And that's what makes meetings such as this and the people present so vital to the achievement of Martin Luther King's beloved community. If everyone does their part, we can complete the restoration of communities long neglected. If everyone does their part, we can advance the capacity of and opportunities for those who have been left behind to participate fully in the social and economic prosperity of the Pearl of the South. So when love is an integral part of your why, then you find a resolute determination towards progress. When difficulties arise, love will enable us to point to rather than point at one another. Love will help you make up your mind that you won't let anything get in the way of the goal, because in the end, love conquers all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Smith. That was a powerful message. Powerful message. We have a new a group project that I'm about to try to do. This is the morning introduction. For those of you who have been here before, you kind of know we pass this mic around. Just say your name, business. That's it. Don't say nothing else. We got a lot of people in the room. We want to give everyone the opportunity to say their name. This is a group project now. Your name, your business, and pass the mic along. It's pretty tight in here. I won't be able to kind of maneuver through. We're going to start here with you, sir. All right, your name, business, pass the mic along.
Jay Bailey, Russell Center. Joe Badgett, Goodwill in North Georgia.
Kiba Jackson, City of Atlanta. Lene Salters, Divine Steps Consultant.
Rue Gunter, Oaks ATL.
Sean Riddle, Atlanta Housing.
Greg Madison, Standing in All Publishing.
Joanna Madison, resident of English Avenue.
Denise Rogers, Career Rise.
John Thompson, Sunbelt Syndications.
Bob Butler, Coldwell Banker Real Estate.
Derek Green, Morehouse School of Medicine.
Ebere Chukwu, Ebere QTS Data Centers.
Sarah Sullivan, The Washington at the historic Westside Village.
Kendall Cunningham, Scouting America, Atlanta Area Council.
Mariam Ajay, City of Atlanta.
Jason Tucker, J. Tucker Homes.
Charles Meriwether, Goodwill.
Kevin Lynch, NAP Commercial Advisors.
David Edson with Cox Curran Associates.
Matthew Coleman, VI Capital Lending Group.
Napoleon Bowen, Soul Graphics, Print is Real.
Sean Walwood, first and foremost, English Avenue resident and Morehouse School of Medicine. They've already been, so there you go.
All right. Good morning, Claude Gatlin, Scouting of America, Atlanta Area Council.
Jazz Vick, Scouting America, Atlanta Area Council.
Leila Gill, Empire Board of Realtors and NID Housing Counseling Agency.
Archie Emerson, Dedicated Realty Incorporated and Empire Board of Realtors.
Troy Farina and Bobby Dodd Institute and Westside resident.
John Sidney, Grove Park Renewal.
Nargis Fontaine, City of Atlanta.
Asher Washington, City of Atlanta.
John Ross, Peachtree Commercial Capital.
Anthony Bellows, I'm a Westside resident, and Bellows Transport LLC.
Good morning, Linda Adams, Vine City resident.
Good morning, Sharon Thrasher, Lions Share, Inc. Good morning, Dana Brown, Families First.
Mindy Cow, City of Atlanta, Department of City Planning.
Jordan Warrington, Junkman, Junk Removal in Holland.
Josh Shields, All Dynamic.
Bishop Dexter Johnson, Higher Ground Church, and Oasis of Vine City.
Kathleen Bryant, Partners in Change, Life Coaching.
Colette Haywood, Vine City resident.
Leonard Watkins, NPUL Chairman.
Larry Stewart, West Hollowell Foundation.
Daniel Sosnovsky, Boston Consulting Group.
Matt Pearl, Pearl Impact Media.
Ralph Mays, Atlanta Housing.
Kristen Mosley, Chick-fil-A.
Mordina Sullen, ML King Dental Center.
Veronica Mount, Land of Promise.
Lamarian Davin, New Spirit United Methodist Church.
Latricia Mays, Lala Luxurious Lashes, LLC.
Good morning, Robin McCrary, Atlanta Housing.
Good morning, Kelly English, Atlanta Housing. Hello, BB Norris, Westside Residents, and B Creative Rentals.
Good morning, Robin Morgan, Historical Westside Garden.
Mario Stowers, Dream Seekers Sports Agency.
Good morning, Lisa Norris, B Creative Rentals.
Hi, good morning. Jay Perlmutter with Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership.
Shirley Henderson Coleman with Sadie G. Mays Health and Rehabilitation Center.
Good morning, Solon Glima, Performance Coaching. Sheldon Hill, Foreclosure International Group, 35 years in the business.
Courtney Counts, Creative Transformation Company, Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs.
Good morning, Rachel Wilson, Project Wellspring, and Economic Development Collaborative.
Tony Wimby, EXP Realty and Nehemiah Community Development Corporation.
Good morning, Ingrid Thompson with Nehemiah Project Community Development Corporation.
Good morning, Stacy Blakely with DCG Civil Engineering Solutions.
Good morning, Beverly Rice, Rice Inc. Literacy.
Takesha Charles, the Atlanta Police Foundation.
Good morning, Alicia Grimes, the Atlanta Police Foundation.
Good morning, Susan Evans, Atlanta Housing.
Hey, good morning, Charles Hankerson, CTS Engineering.
Good morning, Nikita Hankerson, Nikita Hankerson Homes.
Good morning, Frank Morales with Blessed Housing LLC.
Good morning, Ashley Todd with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Good morning, I'm Michael Chanin with Cherry Street Energy.
Harlequin Murray, FundingSourcePro.com.
Hello and good morning, Paula Moody with Families First.
Good morning, Thomas Moore, Self-Educators.
Good morning, family. Tillman Ward, Community Resources of Greater Vine City, home of and the birth of the NPU system, celebrating 50 years in Atlanta.
Good morning, Chappelle Benton with Historical Westside Garden.
Good morning, Rosario Hernandez, Historic Westside Gardens, resident of English Avenue.
Good morning, Sandra Seals with McCormick Barron Salazar.
We have the same first name. Sandra Bush, good morning. I'm a resident for 50 years of a legacy house that's been in my family since 1924. And I am retired. I'm sorry all of y'all are working. But I live in the Booker T. Washington neighborhood.
Good morning, Lyndon Jackson, Operation Hope.
Good morning, Danielle Spann with T.L. Smith and Company.
Good morning, I'm Gabe Wardell, and this is the end of my first official week with Atlanta Housing.
Carolyn Smith, Atlanta Housing.
Good morning, Sylvia Russell, Board of Directors of Rice and also the Westside Future Fund.
Good morning, T. Dallas Smith, Chair of the Westside Future Fund and Board Member of Rice.
Good morning, Neil Shorthouse, Partners in Change, Life Coaching for Adults.
Good morning, Tressica Hamilton, founder of the SID Center.
Good morning, Jennifer Thornton with Gensler.
Good morning, Tori Wynn with Gensler.
Good morning, Paul Arduini, also with Gensler.
Alan Bell with the Atlanta Resource Foundation.
Susan Rutherford, City of Atlanta.
Jay Matthews, City of Atlanta.
Safira Sayas, Birth Responders, Business in English Avenue.
A. Smalls, Georgia Independent Voluntary Emergency Medical Services, nonprofit in Vine City Wellness.
Good morning. Charles Flack. I am with the Community Impact mission to serve the Tri-Cities area of Atlanta, based out of Community Impact Church.
Good morning, everybody. Paul Thibodeau, Impact Church and Community Impact.
Good morning, T&G Allen, Raising Expectations, and I'm sitting next door to my pastor.
Good morning, Maria Armstrong, also with Raising Expectations.
Y'all doing good this morning.
Good morning, Terri Lee with Atlanta Housing.
Y'all done already met me.
Thank you all for doing a fantastic job.
All right, thank you, Derek. And thank you. I'm always, amazed about the breadth of folks that attend the Transform Westside Summit, the depth of the community that's reflected. And we really take the time to do self-introductions that hopefully maybe you heard someone you might like to know, or maybe you heard someone else that might like to know you. Because that's really how we drive changes, by building those relationships and common purpose. So please use this as a great opportunity to continue to build those relationships. Back to that frame, as we think about Black History Month, that Dr. King talked a lot about, that beloved community, because it's by building that community together that we manifest that. And before I introduce Terri and bring her up, I do want to recognize a real Nehemiah. You can see it when you walk into this building, but I want to really thank Jay Bailey, the leader of the Russell Center. And I think, because the transformation of this building occurred right around the time I started at the Westside Future Fund. So it is just unbelievable to walk in here and see, and so much success has been driven out of here. So we really appreciate being here this morning. Thank you. And now I want to talk a little bit about Terri, and then she'll come on up. But it's a real honor. I think I first got to know Terri back in 2004. So it's a real honor for me this morning to be able to have this opportunity to talk to her. And I've already looked at it. I was about to start reading her questions and not her bio. So Terri has 20 years of experience in housing and community development. She's become a national expert on affordable housing and public policy. Before leading Georgia's largest public housing authority, she served as Chief Operating Officer for Atlanta Housing. She was the City of Atlanta's first Chief Housing Officer under Mary Bottoms, where she spearheaded the One Atlanta Housing Affordability Action Plan, a strategy to mobilize $1 billion to create and preserve affordable housing across the city. A proud HBCU graduate, Terri holds a bachelor's degree in public administration from Grambling State Universities and a master's in public policy administration from Jackson State University. She is a lifelong member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., and throughout her career has been a driving force in implementing innovative solutions that stabilize neighborhoods, stimulate investment, and expand housing access for all. We are delighted to have her here this morning. The sold-out crowd reflects the interest in what she's about to say, so let's welcome her as she comes up to the stage. All right, thank you.
John Ahmann.
Terri Lee.
It's been a long time.
It had been a long time. And I was thinking for my first question, because I know when I first met you, when you were working for then Mayor Shirley Franklin, set up the, I think was it the first in the Southeast Affordable Housing Trust Fund?
Yeah.
Drove the creation of that. And then when Mayor Bottoms continued to work on housing, then when Mayor Bottoms got elected with her real focus on housing, the city's first choosing housing officer, and then going over as the CEO of Atlanta Housing and working, I mean, you had a lot of time and experience, and it's, reflecting that experience and the depth of thought you would have given when you stepped up to your role as, Atlanta Housing CEO. What was most on your mind when you started that, going back a year, thinking about all the time you had to get, kind of think about it? What was most on your mind when you started as leader of Atlanta Housing?
Wow. First and foremost, good morning. Y'all can do a little bit better than that. It's cold outside. I'm so very grateful for each of you for being here this morning, and I'm grateful also to have the opportunity to be here with you. I have to acknowledge my pastor, Pastor Paul Thibodeau. I want to thank him for his leadership, his guidance, and just for continuing to help to carry me in prayer. And so many folks from Atlanta Housing. I promise it was not a requirement for Gabe to show up here as he finished his first week, but I want to thank my Atlanta Housing family for being here as well, for support this morning. But when I think about, and John, let me thank you, because of you, so many doors have opened for me. Many do not know that I became Chief Housing Officer, quite honestly, because you came up with the idea that Mayor Bottoms should invest $1 billion in affordable housing. And when people asked who should be Chief Housing Officer, John Ahmann said Terri Lee. And so I thank you. I thank you for that. I thank you for that. Now, I didn't know how we were going to do $1 billion. I didn't know where, but if you know John thinks big. And so I thank him for his vision as well as for your trust. But when I go back a year ago to when I was actually January 10th, the day that it was announced that I was the sole finalist to be the next president and CEO of Atlanta Housing. I actually go back to January 9th, to Larry Stewart, who's my board chair that's here. Larry, don't hide, yeah. And Larry and I were in San Diego, and Larry, I was having breakfast with one of my board members, and Larry came and said, can I see you for a minute? And so we stood in the hallway and we called the chair of the search committee, and Larry held my hand. And as he held my hand, they asked me to serve. All right. They asked me to serve as the next president of Atlanta Housing, and what I have some, Derek. And what struck me at that moment was not a title, wasn't a job, but it was the culmination of God's grace. And the fact that he entrusted me with the assignment, with a hard assignment, but that he trusted me enough to give me the assignment. And so that's what stuck with me. Yeah.
No, thank you. And as you reflect back on your first year, and I'm going to come to, I'm sure in a lot of folks' mind is what's happening with all the changes at the federal level, and I'm going to get to that. But as you reflect back on your first year, what do you feel like when you look back and you go, two parts? What do you go, man? I feel great about that, and the other, that's something I still really got to work on.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So, it was interesting. I've had the opportunity to be in Atlanta. Literally, I moved to Atlanta over 20 years ago simply to take a role under Mayor Shirley Franklin as then the Director of Housing for the Director of Housing under the Department of City Planning. And what struck me as I started my journey as leading Atlanta Housing was that we had to fix the ship while we were rowing the ship. Right, and many would say, well, you were COO before then, so why didn't you do it then? Because I wasn't CEO. So I had to fix the ship and row the ship at the same time. And so what was critically important to me was to make sure we had the right people in the right seats and on the right team. Because while I set the vision, I cast the vision, my hands can't do everything. And so it was important to make sure that we had the right team. And so I'm excited to say that we are building the right team at Atlanta Housing, and that's from the executive team to the senior leadership team to the staffing to make sure we lift up the work. What also has been exciting for me is the fact that we are doing what we promised we would do. When I took the helm of Chief Operating Officer, what struck me is that Atlanta Housing was an organization that many of you in here, if you're honest, would say you had no idea what we were doing. And you had no idea what we were doing with the land that had been vacant some 10, 15 years that were former public housing sites. You didn't have a clear line of sight of where we were with the voucher program or how you received a tenant-based voucher. And quite honestly, if you called in, you didn't get great customer service. And so what struck me is that we needed to really, really make sure on a large scale that the team as a whole understood why we exist. And while housing is that foundation, really we're the catalyst to help people. We use housing to help people from a stability standpoint, economic self-sufficiency, as well as, quite honestly, really, really honing in on making sure people have stabilization with a place to stay. And so with that in mind, we were very aggressive in continuing our track on real estate and moving forward with real estate development activities. I see Sandra Seals here, but the reason why I'm excited to see her is not because she's here today, but because if I go to Bowen on Hollowell, there's a tractor out there. And there's a tractor out there because we're disturbing the dirt, because we're getting ready to repopulate that 74-acre site with over 2,000 units of housing, with the first phase being, I believe, 160 units. 160 units of housing. And so that makes me excited. If I just go down Northside Drive, what makes me excited is the fact that I have Herndon Phase 2 under construction. Now, ironically, Phase 1 closed when I was Chief Housing Officer, but I have Phase 2 under construction and Phase 3. That dirt is being disturbed to start. And so that's an additional 300 units just outside our door, right? What makes me really happy is if I go down to University Homes, which was the first public housing for Black folks in this country, and I see the fact that we are finishing the last phase of rental housing and we're going to start home ownership. And so, getting the team in place, but also delivering upon the promise of new units and at the same time preserving what we have has been critically important. What I wish we had done more of is invest in our families. We want to make sure, while we're using, my sole purpose is to make sure that we really, really expand the overall supply of housing in the city. But while we're expanding the supply of housing and housing resources, let's not miss the opportunity to build our families. And so we have to make sure that the families that we touch, the families that we serve, quite honestly, are also serving themselves. So we're giving them a hand up and not just a handout. And so what we want to focus on more this year, while we're going to still build and preserve units, we want to make sure that we have a very strong focus on lifting our families up differently. And that's workforce development, educational attainment, really focusing in on our children. We had a youth summit a few months ago, and the room should have been full, and it was not. And so my goal is for every youth summit we have, I want every child that we touch to be in that room, because we know if we touch the children and if we're able to make sure that the children have an opportunity for a chance, that could change the trajectory of the family's life.
And thank you for that, and that focus on families. And I was also, in reflecting on a year, thinking about some of the real innovations that have come out of Atlanta housing, and I'm thinking in particular about the Atlanta urban development.
Yeah.
And so because I know when Mayor Dickens got elected, he had such a focus and done a great job of activating publicly held land, not just land by Atlanta Housing, but land held by Atlanta school system, other government entities, and you might talk a little bit about that innovation, how y'all are supporting not just the activation of Atlanta housing land, but other public sites as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In this city, we have a generational moment, an opportunity to impact housing in our communities differently. And I've had the opportunity to serve under great leadership, great mayors for the city, and every mayor has made major contributions. What I've seen in Mayor Dickens' leadership is that you have an intentional collision of public resources and public will. An intentional collision, because you can have a great plan, but if you don't have resources, and that's funding as well as people capacity to lift it up, then you can't make it happen. And so in this moment that we're in, what the mayor has charged us with is being very creative, being very innovative, but also getting to a yes. Right? It's easy to say no, but how do you get to a yes? And so when we think about how we move and how we move fast, but also how we move and move with intention, one of the things we looked at, and again, this was the mayor looking at models across not just the country, but the globe. He looked at a model in Vienna where the country actually owned, their public housing aspect was that they continued to own the housing that was being made affordable. And so he asked Atlanta Housing to utilize our powers to create an affiliate organization. And that organization is the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation. So the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation is really tasked with, while we're working on our 300 acres of land, of which I have 197 already in already under some level of development. Y'all can clap for that, too. Because that's huge, right? We couldn't have said that 4 years ago. But while we're busy moving our assets, we're utilizing AUD to really populate other assets that the city may have control of or opportunity to do so. So one example would be the Midtown Fire Station. There was recently an RFQ and RFP out for the redevelopment of the Midtown Fire Station. Another example, quite honestly, is the Atlanta housing site that we've asked the AUD to assist us with, and that's Thomasville. The old Thomasville public housing site. And one of the reasons we did that is because I just told you I have 197 acres. And what I understand is our hands can't touch everything. And so how do we collaborate in a very smart way to make sure we stretch the resources and capacity we have? And so they're moving really, really good. John Majors serves as the executive director, and he also works along with Susan Rutherford, who told me yesterday she's retiring at the end of this month, end of March. Huge loss for the city, but thank you, Susan, for your work as well.
Yeah. Well, maybe because I think the velocity, since you is the tip of that spear, but the amount that has gotten done since Mayor Dickens come into office has really been amazing. Maria supported him back, and she wrote a lot in the past when Atlanta housing land wasn't being developed. I think we're quite a few columns about that. And one of my learnings when I, got into housing, Westside Future Fund, as part of its work, does affordable housing, came to really, appreciate in the way that Hartsfield-Jackson, is in the world's largest airport. We have regional airports, but they're nothing compared to Hartsfield-Jackson in terms of, and the other organizations like Westside Future Fund and other not-for-profits doing housing, we're like regional airports. You are how much. So Atlanta housing being installed at the time, there was no way the capacity could be replaced by the ecosystem. Yeah. But now that you're really moving and the strength of Atlanta housing, how much land it has, the financial resources, how do you also think about your partners in this, Westside Future, but many, many others around, as at the same time you've got your own, land you're working to develop, and resources that you need to steward. How do you think about your partners in helping you achieve kind of those more regional airports, so to speak, in my metaphor?
Yeah.
Working with you.
So we're lockstep in together. right? When you think about the 197 acres that I spoke of, Atlanta Housing is not directly lifting up the development activity, but we're doing that in concert with our private partners, McCormick, Barron, Salazar, and the Benoit Group is an example of that for the Bowen home site. Integral is an example of that for University Homes. The Benoit Group is an example of that for Inglewood, which is over in Chosewood. For Herndon Homes, Penrose is an example of that. And quite honestly, for the vouchers, for the project-based vouchers that we've been able to invest in Vine City in English Avenue, John, you are an example of that. So everything that we do is in partnership with either a mom and pop landlord, a nonprofit organization, a large-scale development entity, or quite honestly, even a philanthropic entity. And so partnerships are really vital and viable for our work. To that point, under my leadership, we're going to have a different focus on partnerships and a more enhanced focus that we'll lift up that will be led by my chief of staff, Kelly English, because we want to make sure that we are really extending the tentacles of not just the resources we have, but how can we compound those and leverage them with the resources of not just this community, but even of this country.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Let's go into this federal conversation though, because when you talk about the partnerships, because I was looking at my budgets last night, and Derek already told you guys. Now I did not have Derek at the office till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe 1.
Yeah, we do.
Maybe 1, but he kind of gave you a hint of my work ethic. And what I've been looking at is I keep getting these emails and I keep getting these phone calls. Terri, what are you going to do if the federal government shuts down? What are you all going to do? What are you going to do? And as I was looking at our budget last night, we passed the largest budget in the history of the organization last June of $533 million. And again, I want to thank my board chair for his leadership with that. But as I was looking at that budget, I looked at how the allocations were divided out. 84% of those resources are for housing development or housing assistance. Housing development activity or housing assistance. I just told you that we're not lifting up the housing development by ourselves. And so we're doing that in conjunction with some large-scale development entities as well as some nonprofit organizations. When I look at just the housing assistance that we give out under our tenant-based voucher program or our project-based voucher program, that's close to $280 million a year that we're investing to make sure families have a stable place to stay. So I think some of those folks who are calling me, sending me emails, asking me what am I going to do, may need to start thinking about what they're going to do too. Because this is a group project, and love ought to look like something. And if we're gonna make love look like something, then everybody has, and I'm not advocating, because I know we're live streaming, I'm a public agency, a government entity, I'm not advocating for anyone to do anything, I'm looking directly at the camera. But what I am saying is love ought to look like something. And the resources we're talking about are keeping people housed, but those are also businesses that employ people. And there's an economic impact when you look at the reduction that is taking place on the federal level, it's specifically the Department of Housing and Urban Development's budget.
No, and I think I know the answer to this, but to really kind of land the point that of the public funding you receive, how much cash does the state of Georgia contribute? The public funding.
So the relationship we have directly with the state is really indirectly through the low-income housing tax credit program.
Right.
And so they provide, I think last December I closed 5 transactions, and of those 5 transactions, 4, actually no, all 5. 4 were actually 4% taxes and bond deals, and then 1 was a 9%. Low-income housing tax credit deal. And so we get funding that way. Directly as an infusion to my budget, though, and to the bottom line for the resources we provide to our families, as well as the housing development activity that we're incentivizing. We do not receive funding yet.
Right. And many may not know if they're not deep into it. While the mayor does appoint the board of Atlanta Housing, the city of Atlanta, in terms of the city general fund, is not part of
That's correct.
Right.
The city's general, so Atlanta Housing is funded directly from the federal government. So 98% of our budget comes directly from the United States Housing, the United States
Say that number
Department of
again.
Housing. 98%.
Around 8%.
Comes directly from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. 98%. And so now what I will say under Mayor Dickens' leadership, we have again received investments from the city through the Housing Opportunity Bond as well as the Housing Trust Fund to move forward with development related activity. As a matter of fact, we've received the largest investment under Mayor Dickens' leadership than the Housing Authority has received in the last 10 to 15 years. And that was close to $18 million directly related to the infusion of funding that was needed for Bowen Homes, for the redevelopment of Bowen Homes.
Thank you. And I think, given the amazing impact Atlanta Housing has on changing lives in our city, and really back to that engine that is 98% federally funded, the importance of letting our federally elected representatives know how important this resource is. And I think certainly our senators are champions, but would encourage all of us as with a lot of change going on, because we would be a very different city if the number of the amount of federal support via tax credits and direct cash, if that were significantly reduced, we would be in a very different city.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I woke up a few weeks ago. I woke up to a text message, and that text message basically had a picture of a memo, and the memo spoke about the rescission of federal funds. And so I literally spent, I think, the next 3 hours just on the phone, speaking with my team members as well as some folks nationally, just trying to understand. And what struck me at that moment was, you said God does have a sense of humor. And I was like, now, Lord, I finally became president and CEO of Atlanta Housing. All these other presidents and CEOs since Renee they've been chilling. And this is the moment I was walking my dog, and I said, and what struck me was, this is the moment that you've been called for, right? And so I had to strengthen myself to know that we had to immediately understand what our priorities would be as an organization. And first and foremost, our priorities are to make sure as best we can that the families we serve stay housed. Second priority was to make sure the development and preservation projects that we had underway did not stop construction, because literally we have active right now today 11 projects that are under construction, and I go by all of them, right? And then third was to make sure that the staff we have, that in order to accomplish 1 and 2, that we have the right staff and capacity level. But what really got to me was the fact that at the end of the day, we're hurting families, but we're also hurting the overall economy, because it's we're providing assistance where people can have a stable place to live. But again, these companies have jobs. These are jobs. That if we don't have funding to be able to incentivize the provision of housing, companies are not able to operate. Right? And we know, again, that a lot of our Section 8, our Housing Trust Voucher participants live in single-family homes that are really mom-and-pop operations. And so it really takes a hit to the overall economy of this city and, quite honestly, this country.
I think, and I'll ask one more question. We'll open up for Q&A. Set this question up. I remember when Shirley Franklin was elected mayor, she came in at a very challenging time for the city and for those who've been around, but she had such a career working in city government, and others, she had been CEO, so she hit the ground running and really knew, and it was a real gift in terms of that experience. And you had this, and that's why we're so lucky to have you, because you could have certainly done some things that were more lucrative given your experiences, but you chose to continue to serve our city, and we're the benefit of all this experience you had coming in this job. And as you think about a year from now or 2 years from now, let's assume we all want the federal environment to stay positive, so let's assume that is a given. But as you think about what you really want to come back and talk about 1 or 2 years from now, what some of those things might be.
Oh, wow. When I come back 1 or 2 years from now, we're going to talk about the successes that we've had as far as the redevelopment of those former public housing sites. I called some of them out. They sat vacant for years, and we'll be able to talk about the delivery of units. But more importantly, we'll be able to talk about the families that are able to occupy those units. We'll be able to talk about some of the families who lived at Herndon Homes previously that were able to come back to Herndon Homes because we made an opportunity for them to do so. We'll be able to talk about the fact that the children that we have at Atlanta Housing are actually either graduating from high school, receiving a GED, or receiving a GED, and upon graduation or receiving a GED, they are literally either becoming employed, they're going to a technical college, or they're going to a four-year college. Those are the things that I'm looking for us to be able to talk about. We'll also be able to talk about, and hopefully I have more team members here because they'll be able to talk about how much fun it is to work at Atlanta Housing. And it's fun because we have the opportunity to help people. Every day, we have the opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life. And I tell my team all the time, an object at rest remains at rest unless acted upon. So if you got this piece of paper on your desk, and if a landlord is waiting for you to sign off on this piece of paper so they can make a unit available for our families, if you don't move that piece of paper, then somebody don't have a place to sleep at night. And so what I want to make sure of when I come back, hopefully you'll invite me back, but when I come back, I want to make sure that we're able to show the successes that we've been able to make, not just from a unit standpoint, but in making a difference in our families' lives.
So and that's amazing. So many more families will have better lives thanks to y'all moving faster and with more purpose and getting things done.
Yeah. And with intention and urgency. We are literally in the moment of urgency now. Martin Luther King, he talked about the fact in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Community or Chaos? He talked about the fact that we had a choice whether we were going to make sure people had access to affordable housing, whether children had access to good education, whether there was economic mobility opportunities. We're in that season where we have to deliver upon that promise.
No, thank you, and thank you for bringing that urgency. Mm-hmm. And I know, speaking of urgent, I'm sure there's some folks that are anxious and ready to ask some questions. So, Derek, if you'll raise your hand, and Derek will come. I'm gonna bring a mic to you so you can ask a question.
Okay, I seen about 3 hands go up. I usually like the number so I don't forget people. 1,
thank you, Joe.
2, 3. You remember your number, that way I can come and get the mic to you.
Yes, good morning. My name is Sheldon Hill with Foreclosure International. I would like to know, what are your thoughts about the homelessness here in Atlanta, and what do you see needs to be done, as well as how are you guys improvising your programs to help people that are going through either foreclosures or evictions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you, sir, for the question. So homelessness is a very, very, very significant problem that's confronting our city. And one way that Atlanta Housing participates in helping to alleviate homelessness or providing resources for our unhoused neighbors is through our Housing Trust Voucher Program. We partner with Partners for Home to continue to care for the city of Atlanta, and I believe to date we've probably have provided over 500 housing trust vouchers for permanent supportive housing. We also are working very closely with the mayor's office as they move to create 500 units of shipping containers for our unhoused population, and we're working with them to determine how we can help provide some level of project-based vouchers from that perspective. When we think about eviction and people being threatened with losing their homes, so from a federal level, we're what you would call a moving to work organization. And that gives Atlanta Housing a lot of flexibility as to how we utilize our funding. So while we're utilizing our funding for rental assistance and development assistance, we also have the ability to do short-term rental assistance to be able to help families that may be facing eviction or some type of challenge. And so we're working very closely with United Way on that particular program and effort. I believe the program is titled Home Again, and we invest about $2 million a year in that effort. Thank you, sir.
First of all, thank you for being here. I represent the Atlanta Black Chambers and the Rice Center. One of the things I was compelled to, this young lady sat down, and the first question is, where do actual people, boots on the ground, who have problems, where do they go? And then second, I'd like to find out how we can help with the youth. So the first question, I was just compelled because she, people say, go find out, where do I go? Well, she's here, she wants to meet with someone, where should she go? I'd like to talk to somebody later. And then also, how can we help with that youth initiative?
So from an Atlanta housing perspective, if you want to understand more about the work that Atlanta Housing Authority is doing, definitely there's an area on our website where you can sign up to receive more information. Also follow us on all of our social media channels. Now, from the standpoint of if you have any specific questions that you may have, I believe we have a website, on our website, you can actually lean in and send an email directly to me, AH President, and I'll get that email and I'll be able to direct you to exactly where you need to go. Also, everybody from Atlanta Housing, please raise your hand. You got a bunch of folks in here you can talk to today if you have any specific questions for us and guide you. But even in a more coordinated fashion, the city created a housing help center, and the housing help center is really that clearinghouse that if people have questions or are looking for ways to assist or be able to contribute, they could go directly to the Housing Help Center, and then that information will also filter to Atlanta Housing, so we can be able to address any questions or concerns you may have. And you had a second question. See me directly. See me directly. And I say that because we're formulating this as we go, so see me directly on that.
All right. Good morning. My name is Tiffany Green Abdullah with the Inner City Muslim Action Network, Ahmann, Atlanta, and we focus on health, wellness, and healing in the inner city. Most of our work right now is on MLK with 40 seats, 40 beds of transitional housing. So I wanted to know, how does Atlanta Housing work with people coming out of criminal justice system, and how can we partner with you?
So on the reentry program, typically we work with reentry through our Housing Choice Voucher Program if a family is eligible for assistance. And let me say this, we do not have a plethora of vouchers available or waiting. We have a significantly long waiting list, and so if a family is not, or an individual is not on that waiting list, we're not able to assist directly, but we will be able to assist in helping you find other resources that may be available. One of the things that we're doing under our resident services program, we literally have consolidated 2 offices so that we can have more of an effort and more of a focus on leaning in on helping people. And so any reentry efforts will be through that initiative.
Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, sir.
I was eating my chicken biscuit and I was thinking, Truett Cathy, as a child with his mother, moved into Techwood Homes when it first opened. And you said a second ago that a large part of the Atlanta Housing Authority's work, or Atlanta Housing's work, is to move people toward work. Can you say a little more? I know there are a lot of us that know friends that have housing choice that really, they're going to need it for the rest of their lives. But there are also a lot of people like Truett Cathy's mother who move in and then move on. And can you tell us a little bit about that journey as you have worked for 20 years with housing as a leader?
So what you're really speaking about is how do we build people to a level of self-sufficiency so that they don't have to rely on public assistance? That's a great question. The first thing I would say is Georgia is still a state that has $7 as a minimum wage. So that, I think people have to understand that. Georgia is a state that the minimum wage is $7. The first step is we need to increase the minimum wage, and that's really at a state policy level. But we need advocacy to do that. In the meantime, while that's being done, I think it's really important that for Atlanta Housing, we require all of our families, if they're able-bodied, not disabled or seniors, to work. We require our families to have some level of employment. During COVID, that requirement was not eliminated, but the number of work hours were relaxed because a lot of our families or households work in the service industry, and we knew their hours were cut, but we require all of our families to work. One of the things we'll be doing this year is an assessment of our families to understand exactly what skill level they are at and whether or not there are things we can do to help them from an educational attainment aspect or a workforce development aspect. Quick story if I could. I think last September, we were under a hurricane watch. And so and I'm from Grambling, Louisiana. So in Grambling, we're not used to getting ice or anything. So if anything like that happens, my mama automatically calls and say, baby, did you go get your bread and your eggs? And milk. She wanted to make sure I got bread, eggs, and milk. I still don't know why, but those are the 3 things that she asked me about. So I went to the grocery store to get my bread, eggs, and milk, right? And I was at the deli counter, and I was working from home that day. And so I had my AH shirt on, and the assistant at the daily counter said, what do you do for Atlanta Housing? And I said, I'm the president and CEO. She said, well, I'm one of your residents. And so we just went into a dialogue, and she was sharing with me how the program had made a difference in her life and how she was striving to do better and was even applying for a promotion at Publix. And she was like, it may take me away from my assistants, but I'm going to do better for my family. And so for me, that's what it's about, right? It's a hand up, not a handout, and how we can help our families get to that next level is what we want to do. But the minimum wage in Georgia is still $7.25. And I say that because that's something from an advocacy level that we all should be looking at. Yeah.
Good morning, Terri, and good morning,
Denise.
everybody. Greetings from YWCA Greater Atlanta. Thank you for all that you and your team are doing. It is just amazing. And I don't have a question, but I want to give you an opportunity to brag on the good work that you're doing, specifically in terms of taking care of women and their families in the city of Atlanta. So will you let everybody know about the good work you're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So only the Leadership Atlanta class of 2025 will give me that opportunity. So I want to give a shout out to all my classmates that are here. Yeah. And John, our class is better than your class.
Right.
And so one of the things we're doing under our Choice Neighborhood initiative, specifically University Homes, is really leaning in to our women. So keep in mind, we serve about 26,000 families a year. Of those 26,000 families, about 19,000 are receiving some level of rental assistance. Of those 19,000, the great majority are female-headed households. Okay, and so what we're doing with our female-headed households are making sure that we, especially using University Homes Choice Neighborhood as a pilot, we're making sure, one, that for families or for women with children, that we're giving their children an opportunity for better learning. So we created a learning space initiatives with United Way, and it's kind of a collaborative space where we bring in our children. Secondly, we're making sure that we're being very intentional about understanding how our women are being employed, and if there is an opportunity to provide other workforce development opportunities and partnership opportunities with them, be it through Urban League or some entities such as that. And then lastly, from an educational aspect, we're working very closely with the Atlanta Technical College with our residents, with our women as well as our residents, to make sure that they have those educational opportunities available to them. Thank you.
My name is Supporter Report in Atlanta Way 2.0. Great to see you, Terri.
Hey, Maria.
Mayor Andre Dickens has been talking a lot about homelessness, and affordable housing is not just a City of Atlanta problem, it's a regional issue. And could you talk about what Atlanta Housing is doing to help get this to be a regional conversation, and what can be done or what is being done to make sure that it's not just the City of Atlanta that has to solve these problems, but that it's a regional issue?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one is really a global issue, right? And so a couple of things that we're doing on the regional level is we're engaging with the other public housing authorities in the state for two reasons. One, we recognize that while Atlanta may be somewhat different because we're larger and we have different solutions that we're utilizing, at the end of the day, we all are serving and helping people. And so we are literally combining our efforts with the state housing authorities to make sure that we all are maximizing the support that we can bring to the table. The second thing Atlanta Housing is doing is we're serving on the Mayor's new task force for homelessness to really come in and look at how we could be probably some of the best minds at the table, helping to bring intellectual property to see what we can do to address the issue and address it differently. The third thing I would say is on, and I have to say national because I think you have to bring national attention in order to make sure you can address it locally and regionally. We're having these conversations at a national level, understanding that you can't separate homelessness from affordable housing because at the end of the day, it's all people who need housing resources.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I work with Operation Hope, and I have a partner with the Small Business Development Center out of Clayton State University. You mentioned that the minimum wage for Atlanta was $7 an hour.
For the state of Georgia, yes.
Okay, all right, so he is working out of Clayton State University, that's around Forest Park, and he mentioned that they just made the minimum wage like $27 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking whether you think that's going to filter down to either the city of Atlanta or surrounding areas at any time.
Yeah, so the state's minimum wage is $7.25. What most places have done is create what they call a living wage. And as a matter of fact, the city of Atlanta has a living wage, I believe. The city of Atlanta government proper has a living wage of $15 an hour in the same at Atlanta housing. And so it really would be an individual corporation or business prerogative whether or not they adopt that, so to speak. But the state from a policy level is $7.25, but other entities have made adjustments as needed, as they can afford to.
All great questions. We're running up against our clock, and as we move the final few minutes to close out, Terri, I was going to say a few more words, but I'm just appreciating you may have a final thought you want to share, a reflection. Now that we've been talking, you had an opportunity to hear the question. Anything you really want to impart to this group this morning?
So yesterday, and my Leadership Atlanta classmates were with me, but we had our class day, and we had a chance to hear from Nathaniel Smith. And Nathaniel Smith is the CEO of Partnership for Southern Equity, but Nate talked about this courage gap, and that in this season, in this time we're in, there's a courage gap there's a courage gap in people who are actually stepping up and stepping up differently to have a voice and a voice to make change and impact. What I would say is that if I'm so grateful to serve as the leader of Atlanta Housing during this season. And I know we will accomplish great things. We will make sure we house more people. We will make sure we make resources available to our family. We will make sure that we use all that to be really catalytic for comprehensive neighborhood transformation. But what I will say is I need folks to have that courage to step up with us during this season and during this time to make sure that we all are, and not fighting, but that we're all speaking and working towards make sure that the resources that are vitally needed to help people and help communities stay in place.
No, thank you. And as we, reflecting, I want to thank you. You served on the Westside Future Fund Board twice, first as a Chief Housing Officer now, and you've been amazingly supportive of the organization and me personally, so I want to thank you. And I was also thinking, I love trees, and thinking about, because I think trees to me, no matter who you are, they'll give you shade, right? No matter what you've done. Oh, sure, right? You think about like an ultimate, if you're hot in a day, a tree doesn't go, no, wait a second, you can't sit under me. And the great thing about it, a tree, if you plant one in your garden, when it gets big and beautiful, and it doesn't say, well, I'm going to march over the neighbor's yard now. Thanks a lot. And you have grown in Atlanta, and you could have gone somewhere else. And I just really want to thank you for giving us the gift of your leadership. And what's really clear, I think, for everyone in this conversation, I've had the opportunity, and it was great, Derek, sharing your story about how much you prayed, but your love. And your love for people that drives your service. And so thank you, because especially at this time, that kind of servant leadership is so needed, and your urgency you bring from that love. So let's thank Terri Lee, and thank you for 1 year anniversary. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right.
Thank you. This is big.
Couldn't get a tree in here. I was going to go to my nerve. Right?
Thank you all so much. You know what? Pastor talked about Nehemiah. This morning in my meditation, I read chapter 6. And what struck me, there's a passage in there that talks about when he wouldn't come down, when Nehemiah wouldn't come down. The folks started talking about it and started distracting him and said, oh, he's not going to get this done. The work will not happen. And Nehemiah said, he heard them talking, but then he said, Lord, strengthen my hands. And I think, as I'm holding that pit box, it made me think about the work that we're lifting up and how we need the Lord to strengthen our hands. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Wake up. Thank you.
Yeah, please, start. Well, I think we are in the official closeout.
Closeout. This is definitely closeout. We thank everyone for attending today. Please follow us on Instagram, the Facebooks, YouTube. Subscribe to our station if you want to see updated on our projects and more development. Our next summit, March 21st, YWCA. Right, we want you all to show up.
Yeah, please.
This is outstanding.
We'll stand one more time. Thank you.
She'll be on stage March 21st.
So the Phyllis Wheatley building just across the street, right, is on the way. So thank you. We'll learn more about that in March.
But this ends our live stream. If there are questions that you want to kind of get in front of people, this is the time to do it. So thank you all. Have a great day.